Nobody has ever truly solved this corner, and in 2026, nobody might. Look at that, a 270-degree ever-tightening spiral, Shanghai's signature, the corner that defined this circuit for 20 years. And under the 2026 regulations, it's become something completely different. The most battery-punishing, tire-eating, strategy-breaking piece of tarmac on the entire calendar. Not a corner problem, a race problem. The entire race comes down to a decision made in that spiral. Not the straight, not the pit lane, the spiral. And if you want to know whether Max can actually solve it, stick around, because the answer is more complicated than you think. Let me show you. 5.451 kilometers, 16 corners, designed by Hermann Tilke. And the layout is literally inspired by the Chinese characters for Up, which is also part of Shanghai, which is either poetic or the most on-the-nose design brief in motorsport history. The circuit has 3 zones you need locked in for this conversation. Zone 1, the spiral, turns 1 and 2, a 270-degree ever-tightening corner that drops your speed from around 300 kilometers an hour to roughly 185 before it spits you back out. Zone 2, the 1.2-kilometer back straight, one of the longest on the entire calendar. Zone 3, turn 14, around 5G of deceleration, the biggest braking zone on the circuit. The 2016 race produced 161 overtakes in dry conditions, which was a record at the time. For years, this circuit rewarded the brave and punished the reckless. But in 2026, that formula completely flips. What makes the turn 1 through 2 spiral uniquely catastrophic under 2026 rules is that it sits in no man's land for the new energy model. Not slow enough for meaningful brake regeneration, not fast enough for harvesting under throttle. It just bleeds the battery through electric motor deployment while giving almost nothing back. One specific corner, net negative, every single lap. But that's only half the damage. The 2026 cars run 25mm narrower front rubber and 30mm narrower in the rear, with 30% less downforce. The spiral, already one of the hardest corners on the grid for front tire degradation, has become a genuine tire destruction zone. Drivers who attack through there don't just lose battery, they shred the fronts. Both resources, same corner, zero reward. So picture what a driver is carrying when they exit the spiral and hit that 1.2-kilometer straight. A degrading front tire, a battery that's already been taxed, and 21 other cars who may have managed that spiral very differently. The driver who pushed through the spiral exits turn 12 with a depleted battery. They hit the straight. Battery's too low to deploy cleanly, so the car enters super clipping, harvesting at full throttle, bleeding straight line speed on the one stretch of the lap where speed matters most. Meanwhile, the driver behind, the patient one, the one who lifted fractionally through the spiral, arrives on that same straight with a full deploy. Not super clipping, hunting. That gap closes 3 or 4 tenths in a straight line, from patience alone. And then they both arrive at turn 14 at completely different speeds. Here's the loop that breaks races. The driver who super clips arrives at turn 14 slower. Less speed means less kinetic energy under braking, which means less harvesting, which means a lower battery state entering the next lap, which means more super clipping next time. It's a negative feedback loop, and it starts in the spiral. Get it wrong twice, and you've gifted the driver behind a straight line upgrade that wasn't on the timing screen until it was already too late. 22 cars, 5G braking zone, narrower tires, approach speeds varying wildly depending on who has charge and who doesn't. Braking points baked in by years of muscle memory, now completely irrelevant. Lap 1. Shanghai used to be an overtaking paradise. Now, it's a trap with a 1.2-kilometer runway to spring it. If you're already seeing this race differently, good. Hit like and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you about who actually solves this is even wilder. Buttons right there. The perfect 2026 Shanghai lap looks nothing like we're used to watching here. It starts with a deliberate lift through the spiral, not backing out, not bottling it, just reading that tightening radius and trimming the throttle early enough to keep the fronts in their window. The kind of input that's invisible from outside but worth tenths per lap over 56 laps. A fractional coast before turn 6, patience through the midsector. And then you arrive on the back straight with a full deploy, and turn 14 is yours to take, not defend. That is not a fast lap. That's a race-winning lap. There is a difference. Now, who on this grid drives that lap better than anyone else? I know, it's uncomfortable if you're not a Max fan. China is not historically Verstappen's strongest circuit. He hasn't dominated the way he does at Spa or Monza. But in 2024, he did the sprint and race double at Shanghai and barely looked stressed doing it. On a track that was supposed to expose Red Bull's weakness on high degradation surfaces. His ultra-smooth inputs through high-low corners and his almost eerie ability to lift exactly where the car needs it without surrendering lap time, well, that's not a Red Bull advantage. That's a Max advantage. And it maps directly onto what the 2026 spiral demands. His feedback loop with Giampiero Lambiase, 6 seasons together, means the RB22 will understand the spiral's energy behavior faster than any other car on the grid. 1 lap of data, 1 radio message, and the setup direction is locked. That's lap time that doesn't show up on a timing screen. And early Bahrain testing showed the Red Bull as one of the strongest packages out there, with Toto Wolff himself calling it the benchmark after day 1. There's a beautiful irony at the center of all this. Max called the 2026 regs Formula E on steroids, said energy management is anti-racing. He hates lift and coast, the reluctant master, the driver who despises the very skill he possesses better than anyone on the grid. He doesn't want to lift through the spiral. He wants to be flat. But when he does lift, when the situation demands it, nobody reads that corner more precisely than him. And that's not my opinion. That's what the data shows. The driver who treats that spiral like a chess move instead of a qualifying lap is the one who wins Shanghai. Max has been playing that game his whole career. He just never had a corner that specifically rewarded it. Until now. But wait. Max being the favorite doesn't mean this race goes the way anyone expects. The predictions I'm about to give you, at least one of them is gonna upset someone. So here's where I land. Qualifying, Leclerc. Ferrari's 2026 Aero package is built for 1-lap rocket fuel, and without the energy management penalty of full race distance, Charles can light up that spiral and fly. In a short burst, that Ferrari is going to be extraordinary. This one I'm pretty confident about. Sprint, Piastri. Not Russell. Okay, hear me out. McLaren spent more combined lap time in Bahrain testing than any other team. Over 400 laps across both drivers. Andrea Stella has built the most energy-efficient car on the grid at race pace. And Piastri's at home in tight, technically demanding races. And the sprint format plays directly into McLaren's proven short-format data advantage. Russell is dangerous, but Piastri is the pick people aren't making. Write it down. Race, Verstappen. Not just because the car might be the fastest, though it might be, but because Max is the only driver on this grid who will treat that battery-eating 270-degree monster like a chessboard from lap 1. He'll lift where everyone else pushes. He'll save the fronts where everyone else destroys them. He'll arrive at turn 14 on full deploy while his rivals are already caught in the feedback loop. Defense becomes attack every lap. China isn't his track. 2026 might change that. This is the lap Max Verstappen was born to drive. So drop it in the comments. Do you agree with the Piastri sprint call? Does Max dominate this like 2024? Or does Leclerc surprise everyone and carry that qualifying pace into the race? And if you want to see the video that breaks down exactly why Max is built for 2026 in ways nobody else is touching, that one's already up on the channel. Subscribe, and see you there.